friends, you are with Kim Byers at the Celebration Shop, and I'm excited today because we are making a classroom Valentine box. So I used to love making these, especially with my boys when they were younger, and we made some of the craziest things. And so if your kid comes to you and tells you they want a hippo unicorn, you can pull it off with Cricut. So we're going to hop over to Design Space. I'll show you what I'm making, and then we'll hit the craft table and I'll show you how to put it all together. And I'm actually gonna be using a new blade with my Cricut Maker, and so I'll show you how to do that too. So let's hop over to Design Space and get crafty. Okay, so here we are in Cricut Design Space. I simply created a new canvas. I went into images and chose what I think is a really cute rainbow. And you can do the same concept of what I'm going to show you with basically any design you want in Cricut Design Space. My recommendation though is you're choosing whatever image that you want to put on or create around your box. Try to choose something that has a single cut base. So like if you look at this rainbow and you scroll down, see this cut at the bottom? It is the actual full shape of the rainbow and the clouds and everything, so it gives you a base to build on. Okay, so I'm going to put that back. And then measure your box, and we're just using a shoe box. So measure your box and then measure your design and make sure that you can, make it proportionate. So my box is 5 inches tall by 11 inches wide, and so I have made my rainbow as large as I can just to get it on a 12 by 12. You of course could use a larger mat and larger paper and make it bigger than 12 by 12 if you wanted to. And then, so my rainbow is going to be about 7 inches tall, and I may lift it up a little bit on my box, but I'll show you all that on the craft table. So let's hop over and I'll show you what we're working with. Okay, so here we are on the craft table, and I was going to show you a couple of the things that I'm working with. So this is a basically a shoe box. Now I did get it at the store. It's got like a nice professional cut out of the top, and it was like $3. So if you can find one of these, fantastic. If not, just take your kids tennis shoe box or something, and you can cut a hole out of the top of it. But then what I did is I got papers from Cricut. So this is actually the Jewels sampler, and I did get 12 by 24 sheets. And I wanted that because at the time I didn't have my box, and I wasn't sure, how big I was going to need each sheet to be, and I didn't want to be restricted by a 12-inch sheet. That said, it's going to work out perfect because my box is 11 inches. And then I also got these corrugated cardboard sets, and so these are going to be great for, I thought they'd be really fun for the clouds, but they're also going to be a great backer. So that base that I was telling you about that'll be at the back of my rainbow, this is going to be a great base to work on. And so I got all these pretty pastel colors, and then I got this one because it's got a great like neutral set in it with white for my clouds. And of course I have my maker, and I have my clear ruler. I can't do much without my clear ruler. And I'll have my mats and some other things, and I'll show you all those as we go through the process. But if you have a maker, the other thing you could do is use the chipboard. I couldn't think of the word for a minute. You could use chipboard as well as your base or back. And I did that last year when I made a cactus Valentine box. So I'll link that image up or that video up so you can hop over and check that one out too. Okay, so now we're back in Cricut Design Space, and at this point, now that we know that the design is going to fit our box, change any colors that you might want to change now. So you'll notice that the very back piece and the top portion of the clouds are the same off-white color. And then there's actually another cut element here on the inside. See if you take that out. That's white. So if you wanted to, you could do a pure white in the back and then the off-white here to kind of give it some dimension. Whatever you want to do with the colors, now's the time to do that. Just so you can keep everything straight when you're assembling it. Okay, so let's go ahead and select Make It. Okay, so now that we're on all of our mats, I actually want to cut my base first. So most everything that I'm using is cardstock, but I want to go ahead and cut out my corrugated that I'm going to be using for the base. So if you don't use corrugated very often, just know that here, like these are all of my favorites. They're all have stars on them. These are the things I use a lot. But you can go up into Browse All Materials, or if you know what type or where it's located, which it happens to be the third item in the artboard section, you can go ahead and just select it there. Okay, so it's going to use the 5-point blade, so there's no special blade or anything, and I can go ahead and get that on my mat and we'll get it on the machine. So I'm going to start with the corrugated material as my base, and the reason I'm doing this is the corrugated is it's a thicker material, and so I want to use the corrugated, and I'm actually going to use the off-white as the first, or the base material, and then I'm going to go back and use like the bright white for my clouds. Okay, so we'll put this on our mat and get it onto the machine. Now this mat is pretty tacky, so it's pretty sticky, but if your mat is not very sticky, or if you're just worried about it, especially with, you know, like a specialty paper, you can take a piece of tape and just tape down the edges. And sometimes I do that just for safety, you know, so I don't mess up my material or lose any material. Okay, let's hit the machine. Okay, so we have the corrugated material in the machine. Okay, let's see how nicely that pops off of the mat. And again, remember to always bend the mat, not the material, okay? All right, so how cute is that going to be? It's gonna be fun. Actually, what I think I'm gonna do, because I want, the corrugated, of course, is ribbed, and so I want the materials, the other colors, to adhere to it really well, so I'm gonna flip it over, and I'm going to use the flat side, and then plus it'll make it look pretty. You know, there'll be like a ribbed on the inside, but we're going to do it like this. Okay, so let's move on to our next color. We're going to use pink next, and I looked in Cricut Design Space, and I'm going to cut my paper down so that I can you know, save as much material as possible. Any of you guys who craft with me know I love to save my materials, so we really just need something that's about 5 inches tall. Okay, so we'll cut that off, we'll put that on the mat, get it on the maker, and then we'll cut out the rest of our colors, and then we'll come back also and do our clouds, and I'll show you how to pull this all together. Okay, so now I've got cut out the first phase of my box, which is my rainbow. And so everybody has their own way of assembling paper. I learned a long time ago that I am better with glue dots than I am with tape or with actual glue, because I have no patience and I don't want to wait on things with the glue. So I'm going to use glue dots to attach all of my pieces and parts. And I do want to show you guys, so I changed my base color. Actually, I didn't change it. I kept the corrugated, but I added a piece of blue cardstock because I wanted a little bit brighter pop, and I wasn't really fond of that off-white or cream color. So I'm going to attach all of these with my glue dots, and then we'll move on to the next step. Okay, so we're back in Cricut Design Space, and I decided that I wanted to personalize the box. It's nothing worse than, you know, not having your name on the box. trust me, we went through this one year when no one knew that it was, you know, our box, because you go through all this trouble creating this beautiful box and then, oh, you forgot to put your name on it. So they ended up writing on it with a marker, which how fun is that, right? So make sure that you personalize your child's box in some way. And so what I decided to do is put Addie's name on a cloud. So my box is red, as you saw from the craft table. So I want to put some clouds around on the red part of the box and decorate that up a bit. And so I went back into Cricut Design Space, just into images, and I found some clouds that were very similar to the ones I have here, or you could even just duplicate the ones that you have for your rainbow. And then I took the text tool and chose a writing font. And I actually just chose Algebra because it was a very simple font. It was something that the kids could easily read. Like a script font, little kids will have trouble reading that. They won't be able to figure out what it is. So then once I typed Addie's name, you just take both the cloud and the lettering and make sure that you attach them. And then whenever you get into making it, the machine will tell you to put in a pin. Okay, so, oh, and I also decided to add a sun. I thought that could be really fun to put a sun onto it as well. So, okay, so let's go ahead and select Make It. And so when it populates to the mat, you'll see that one of the clouds will have the lettering on it. So when we get to that point with our machine, we just need to, you know, watch the prompts from Cricut Design Space, and we'll put our pen tool in at that point. Okay, so I've sent my clouds to the maker. So what I want to do is go ahead and insert my material. I'm going to use a purple pen in my machine. Okay, so if you noticed, I'm going to show you this really quickly. So if you noticed, there's an arrow here. So you want to be able to push that down, not hard, but you want it to go where the arrow is inside the clamp. Okay, and so now we can hit the cut. And the first thing it's going to do is write with the pen, and then it'll go and do all of its cuts. Okay, so now we're going to cut out our sun. So load in our yellow paper. Okay, I'm going to show you one more quick thing. So for my box on top, I've got pretty clouds to put on the sides, and I've got my rainbow and my sun. I've got Addie's name now, but the top of my box is still red. And so I'd like for that to be white, and I would love to use my new wavy tool to cut that out so that it's not like right up next to the edges and it kind of has some fun to it. So I'm going to show you how I can do that. So I've measured the top of my box, and basically, you know, as I said before, it's 11.5 inches, but I think I'm going to go like 11.25 so that there, you know, it's in a little bit on each side. There's no overlap. And then there, of course, is the cut in the center. So here's what I did. So if you take the shape tool and you just grab a square, okay, and so then you go up and unlock the sizes. Okay, I'm going to need two. So I take it and I unlock, okay? And so then I'm going to make it 11 by 25 and 8. I couldn't remember my number. And we'll just use the one on top, that's fine. 11 by 25 and 8. Okay, so I have a rectangle. Now, of course, I need this cutout in the center, right? So if you're looking at the one I've already made, you see that it's all one piece. You're like, how did she do that? So you take this, and then you take the second rectangle, and so my opening is 5 inches by 2, and so I'm going to go 5 by 2, and then I want that to be in the center of this rectangle. So here's a simple way for you to make that happen. Okay. We're going to grab both of them, and then we're going to go over to Align, and we're going to align center horizontally and we're going to align center vertically, okay? And so then what we want to do is we want to use our slice tool. Hit slice. So you see now my rectangle is showing up again, and you're like, wow, it's still there. Just keep moving. So now you can delete these 2 extra pieces, and you have a perfect cut that will sit right down on top of your box. So I'm going to delete this one and keep the one that I already have. Just me being me, I want to change the color to white. And then if you go up into line type, and if you don't have the wavy blade yet, of course just use cut. But if you do, you can select wavy, right? So it did change the color, no big deal. But now it's going to tell the machine to use the wavy blade when you get to that particular cut. Okay, so let's select Make It. And we've already cut so much of this out, we're just going to skip right over to the wavy blade. And we're going to select Continue. And we see, if you look at this now, some of the materials that you could have used before are now grayed out. That means that you can't use them with the wavy blade, which is fine. So now what we want to do is go into Browse All Materials, and we'll go down to cardstock, and we're just going to use a light cardstock. Done. Okay, and so now it shows you that you need to load your wavy blade in clamp B. Okay, so let's hop over to the machine. Okay, so for our cut for the top of the box, we're going to use the wavy blade. So those of you who have makers, you know that it's capable of having tons of different blades, and so this is one of the newer ones that came out last fall, and it's number 31, and it cuts everything in a wave. Very cool. Okay, so to place the wavy blade in, it's super simple to switch these out. Just take out my fine point and pop in the wavy blade with the wheel facing inward, and you have this little guard here, and you close the clamp, and you literally just insert your paper and you're ready to go. Okay, so we finally have everything cut out. We've already assembled our rainbow. Now we have extra clouds, we have Addie's name, we have a sun, we have a scalloped top. So now all we have to do is to attach everything. So I'm going to use glue dots again for all of the clouds. Well, most of the clouds. And then I have these. These are foam adhesive squares. So they basically just raise up the paper craft. So I'm going to use these to attach some of the clouds too, so it gives them that raised effect off of the box. And then I was thinking about using a straw actually to put the sun on to make it taller and up above the rainbow. Either that, or I'm going to use one of these foam adhesive squares to attach the sun to the back of the rainbow so that it pops off, or is not like flat against it. Okay, so let's get going. One quick thing to note is I attached the rainbow to the lid so that you could take it on and off. And if you put any clouds around the backside, just make sure that you separate, so you can attach some to the side and then some to the top. So we'll take another glue dot and attach that cloud to the top. Okay, so I got all of the clouds on, and I used the foam squares to make some of them raised. See how cute it turned out? Okay, so the last things that we want to do is we want to add our sun and then personalize it with her name. So what I'm thinking about doing is putting her name here on the front with foam adhesive, so that it is kind of standing out or raised. And then we're going to use those as well to put the sun right behind the rainbow. Okay, so There are, in this packet, there are some really tiny little ones, and then there's some larger ones. I'm gonna use the bigger ones for this. But the small ones are really great when you're making cards or other things that have little tiny details. So I'm gonna put it to the back of the rainbow. And how cute, right? Pull it forward a little bit so you can see the whole thing. And then we're gonna take these same squares, and we're going to use 2 of them and raise up the cloud. I think she's going to love this. And then all of her little friends can give her class valentines. So we'll put this right there. So I really like the way the foam adhesive kind of gives it some pop. Okay, so what'd you think? I hope you enjoyed that as much as I did, and I hope my niece enjoys having it for her class, or maybe she'll come over and we'll make that hippo unicorn. She's very into unicorns right now. And I hope you'll ring the bell and hit that subscribe button so you can join me every week for new videos, and I'll see you guys next time.